Steve Cortes, to you, I want to get your take on what the political fallout will be from this number for the month of April, but also in the months ahead as we move toward November.
Right, Dagan, you know, look, I think this is bad news, okay? It's good news that we added some jobs, but we are too great a country to accept this kind of mediocrity, slow growth, slow job creation, more and more people dropping out of the workforce. We have almost 50 million Americans on food stamps. That's the entire west coast of the United States. So there is clearly a problem here, and to me, the problem is Washington, D.C., it's regulation, it's taxes. I think that Donald Trump is addressing both of those. It's one of the main reasons that he is the Republican nominee. I believe he will win in November and fix a lot of this and encourage. By the way, a part of it, too, is just a crisis of confidence. There's a malaise in the country right now. Entrepreneurs, risk takers are unwilling to put themselves out and unwilling to take risks, and it's largely because of policy. I think that's going to change, so I'm near-term very pessimistic, both on the markets and the economy. Long-term, very, very optimistic.
Steve Moore, how do you get optimistic on a market where you know that there is going to be so much, well, there's going to be so much fighting between the two eventual presidential candidates, and you have a White House that's not willing to just get out of the way in terms of letting businesses operate? You have more regulations coming out of the White House just in 7 years than you did during 2 terms for Bill Clinton and President Bush 43.
Well, first of all, I agree entirely with what Steve Cortes just said. You're spot on right. It's taxes, it's regulations, it's not monetary policy. All of your Wall Street friends there, Dagan, who think we're going to get out of this by printing more money, that ain't going to work. We've tried that for 7 years. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we have underestimated the negative impact of the Obama tax increase. When was that, like 2013 or so? When we raised taxes on dividends, we raised taxes on capital gains, we raised taxes on small businesses, and, you know, as we've been talking about, the big factor that's suppressing growth right now is businesses are not investing. Why aren't they investing? Well, what I would say to the White House is, if you tax something, you get less of it. You increase taxes on investment, and guess what? Businesses are investing less. One other negative thing that I saw just in the last couple of weeks, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, Dagan, which measures the optimism and pessimism of small businesses, finds that small businesses are becoming more pessimistic. That's another negative sign.
I know. I always go back to Steve Cortes, and we're going to go to break in a minute. I always go back to the 9 most terrifying words in the English language, according to Ronald Reagan. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Right, right. No, and, you know, sadly, speaking of small business, to Steve Moore's point, and this is really terrible, it's pathetic. For the first time in American history, we have more businesses closing than opening. Yep. That is a terrible milestone that we've hit. Again, I believe that we will rebound away from that, but we need to elect Republicans both on the presidential ticket, we need Donald Trump to be president, and we need to elect to the Congress Republicans who will actually act like conservatives and fight for business and not be
That's asking a lot, Steve.
Yeah, we can dream.
Well, I know, but I believe we can do it.
John Hartley, leading up to the election, though, bad news on the economy, is it definitively bad news for who the Democratic nominee will be?
Well, I think this year is just so different from past election cycles. I think you really have to kind of throw the whole data history out the window and start again. I think at the end of the day, I think policy is a very, very big part of this. And to Steve's point, I think the payroll tax increase 2013, that was a payroll tax increase on not just wealthy individuals, but a tax increase on poor individuals as well. Right. And certainly that impacts their spending a lot. Policy uncertainty has been very high. We all remember the fiscal cliff at the end of 2012 and how much of a policy disaster that was. But I also think we have to think about, too, what about these longer-term trends? The fall in productivity, which has been going on for really 15 years now, changes in demographics. And I think there's some things that policy can fix, whether it can be monetary policy or fiscal policy changes. But I think there's also the sad reality, too, of these longer kind of secular trends that seem to be persisting and trickling down to our jobs data.
John, thank you for being here. It was great to see you.